Season 5 has no chill, and I do mean no chill, because less than half this season has a gap under 1,000. Yeah, you can tell that I wrote this a few years back. I just kind of sat on this script for a while, because oh my god, this is nowhere near as one-sided as what I've done the last few years. Anyway, yeah, if you've seen the previous videos, you know the rules. This is going to be every single death battle from Season 5, ranked from the closest to most unfair, using only Death Battle's own logic. They're only going to be using feats that they bring up, the calculations they give, their scaling. This is not to shit on their research, especially given how old this is. The entire meta for power scaling has changed so much in the years. This is not going to be talking about how, oh, they're biased, they're wrong, this and that. Except, admittedly, we have to start with 3 episodes that are wrong by their own logic. So, how about we just get straight to those? The first is Jotaro versus Kenshiro. I do not know how they fuck this up, but Star Platinum's attack potency is put at 3 million tons of force from punching some teeth. That's tons of force though, not tons of TNT. However, Kenshiro isn't put anywhere near that. At best, they say he can support 100 tons of weight on his shoulders. That's not comparable. Those metrics don't work out. So when it comes down to it, I'm going to say attack potency probably matters more than lifting strength in a fight like this. And I'm just going to go with the logic of, 1,000 tons lifted is not as impressive as 3 million tons punched in your face. So Jotaro has a massive power advantage and the speed advantage and time stop. They really balked this one. Samurai Jack versus Afro Samurai is a result of me being anal, because when Jack crashes, they explicitly say this was megatons of force, not megatons of TNT. Converted, the megatons of force they give would be around 44 tons of TNT. Afro is scaled to over 70 tons of TNT. This is why it's important to clarify if it was tons of TNT or not. Force and TNT are different unit amounts of tons. They put Afro as stronger, and come on. And lastly, Mario vs Sonic. Yes, both Mario vs Sonic episodes are wrong by their own logic. It seems all fine and good at first, their numbers line up. Mario's kick is above base Sonic running into shit, his durability is above base Sonic's durability, and in terms of speed, Mario can keep up with base Sonic. That's all base Sonic though. In higher forms, they claim that Super Sonic can survive a planet-level explosion, and that Hypersonic is faster than light. These things both comfortably make Sonic blitz the ever-living shit out of Mario, and be way too tough and strong for Mario. Planet level is a bit beyond those megaton kicks Mario was busting out, and Mario having counter power-ups doesn't matter when Sonic is so much faster. So yeah, oops. And funnily enough, there are more wrong than there are vague. There's only like 2 episodes that are vague, so we can talk about them quickly too. Nightwing vs Daredevil gives us very little. They claim that any strength or speed feats that one had, the other could replicate. Stats were basically even as far as they put it. It just came down to the fact that Nightwing had perfect counters for Daredevil with his sonic wingdings. That's all they did to give Nightwing the win. And funnily enough, the other one, Batman vs Black Panther, it's Black Panther vs Batman, doesn't give us much to work with. They just tell us that Batman can't do shit to the vibranium suit. So it's basically the same as Nightwing vs Daredevil, where Black Panther perfectly counters Batman's everything by wearing good clothes. These can't really be measured in terms of how close they are. And I know some people like to go, oh, all you talk about is the numbers, but yeah, that's the point, is to have a quantifiable list of gaps. Anyway, let's get to the numbers. Season 5 has no chill, and it's just all fairly big numbers. So, what's our smallest stomp? Well, okay, stomp is a bit unfair. At number 11, we have Ryu versus Jin. This was not a stomp at all, especially given what's coming up. When it came to analysing them on their own feats, it wasn't that crazy. Jin was much faster with his orbit flight than Ryu dodging bullets, but Ryu could lift 30 tons and Jin could hit with 30 tons of force. 2 completely unrelated things that cannot be compared despite the same number and the fact the word ton was involved. What can be compared though is their scaling and how they fare with that. Scaling Jin to Kazuya, Death Battle had him on par with 100 megatons of TNT through a feat they were a bit tentative about. With Ryu, they had him on par with a 415 megaton island punching feat. You don't really even need a calculator for this. They had Ryu placed at 4.15 times more powerful than Jin. That's the only small gap we're going to have. They did scale Jin as faster, but at the same time they were a lot more hesitant about the 100 megaton feat, so I think it's kind of a bit of a give or take there, because honestly, they don't really seem to buy the 100 megatons. That's really funny given how powerful Tekken is today. Number 10, Carnage vs Lucy. Boys, a controversial one in terms of research. According to Death Battle's research, Carnage can reach Mach 2 and survive an explosion worth 125 tons of TNT. Lucy was able to punch an island so hard it exploded, which they calculated to be about 31,000 tons of TNT, or 31 kilotons, or around town level. Roughly 248 times more powerful than what Carnage could survive. Funnily enough, she was also placed at Mach 500, 250 times faster than Carnage. Get fucked, Cletus. Number 9, Ultron vs. Sigma. Ultron vs. Sigma, this ranking is just on the stat gap, but it is arguable how this works, because they don't say that Sigma could never win, or that he has no way to get rid of Ultron. So reasonably, they don't think that Sigma could literally never win against Ultron, but it's a hard one. You can definitely argue maybe that this one should be at number 1 because of how much they go on about how good Ultron is. But again, they don't say that Sigma can't win. But I think the number-wise still kind of puts into perspective the gap here. They place Sigma at 63 sextillion tons of TNT, and Ultron at 682 septillion tons. But I would consider the more notable gap being the speed gap, because the faster one is going to be able to get off their hacking quicker. So we're actually going to measure this one with the speed gap. In terms of speed, they have 200,000 times the speed of light compared to 114 times. Pretty sizable, and leaving Sigma at 1,700 times slower. Number 8, Sora vs. Pit. So every single episode from here on out made it on that original biggest stomps list. You can let that sink in, both in terms of how stompy Season 5 was, and the fact that half of Season 5 would not make it on the top 15 of all time if I did that video today. There's actually one on this that I missed in my original video too. This, however, was... I didn't mention in my original video, but man, for some reason I had a bitch of a time trying to convert 1,600 pounds of TNT to tons of TNT. But it was a waste of time, because it's not as big as them just saying that Pit compares to 30 tons of TNT. Which is... it's simpler. Unfortunately, Sora at his maximum was scaled to Hercules throwing a rock at 24 megatons of TNT, or 24 million tons of TNT, compared to Pit's measly 30, leaving Sora at a solid 800,000 times more powerful than Pit, as well as being a lot faster, scaled to 220 million miles per hour over Pit's 90 million. Yeah. Number 7, Leon S. Kennedy vs. Frank West. Wait, why do I have this here? Hold on. This episode is one I missed in my initial video, because it's not so obvious as to how big a gap it is. Frank was given fucking nothing. Genuinely, they give him no meaningful feats of strength or speed. They do say he can bash around a 2 or even 3 ton vehicle, but those not only require his suit and don't scale to him normally, but those don't actually tell us the power output he has. Those only tell us the weight of something he can move, not the energy he can exert. If we use that, then Leon is twice as strong via his rock push. Though clearly, that's a much slower push than Frank doing this. But in terms of attack power, Frank got nothing, we just have to assume he's human level. Leon was given a weapon that could create a 60-foot wide explosion. I got someone to check how big that is, and a 60-foot explosion would imply a level of power equivalent to 0.06 tons of TNT. Okay. So, this doesn't exactly follow my rules. I wrote this before, I'm just going to keep it in. To be honest, you can kind of take this how you want to. I'm not sure if I would agree with myself doing this right now, but I have it in the video. So Leon's weaponry was put 836,800 times more powerful than Frank's anything. Okay, yeah, sure, why not? They also put Leon at dodging laser grids, what that's worth, but that's nothing. The real speed gap was 80 miles per hour versus Frank at 15, so Leon's 4 times faster. So you know what, if you want, you can just take this as a 4 times gap, because speed's the only measurable metric. That's probably what I'll do if I put this in a tier list. Number 6, Optimus Prime vs. Gundam. I still remember comments of people saying that Gundam should have won because it's bigger. Doesn't matter at all, because, Gundam was scaled to an explosion, around 150,868 kilotons of TNT, or 150.868 megatons of TNT. Prime has a lot of given feats, but his biggest one is the explosion created by his Matrix at 40 Yoda tons of TNT. Yes, like the Star Wars guy. It might not be extremely obvious how big a gap this is, but it's 266 quadrillion. Prime is nearly a full 300 quadrillion times more powerful than the Gundam according to Death Battle, as well as faster. Odd though, given Prime's Matrix isn't often a weapon, but it's Season 5. Number 5, Crash Bandicoot vs. Spyro the Dragon. This one's funny because they say it's a close fight, and Yeah, I'm sure you guys maybe thought it was. Death Battle again doesn't make things clear on what they mean when it comes to tons of force versus tons of TNT, but this time I could figure it out. In this episode they claim that Crash survived 2 million tons of TNT, but Spyro survived 1.9 million tons of force. These are obviously very different numbers, despite being both in the millions, because one's force and one's tons of TNT. One is the force of that many tons hitting you, the other is that many tons of TNT going off at once. So which do we go with? Well, they outright say that these are meant to be the same, and we can use the numbers given on screen with Spyro's to deduce that yes, Spyro's is indeed tons of force. So Crash arguably was also scaled to 2 million tons of force, because Death Battle is confusing as fuck in this era. Why is this important though? Aren't these meant to be similar feats? Look, it's not really important. I'd argue that you could say that this is an episode that was wrong because, you know, Crash was given million tons. Because I'm silly, I would probably say that. Except, they casually gave Spyro planet busting. Yeah, planet level Spyro versus 2 million tons of force Crash Bandicoot. What level is that for Crash? Well, 2 million tons of force puts Crash at around building level. So, yes, Dark Spyro's full power output is 92 quintillion times higher than Crash. Crash fucking dead. Number 4, Raven vs. Twilight. To anyone who remembers my first video on this subject, this was actually lower because I was an idiot. The stuff with Twilight is the same as it was in that first video. She survives a shitload of newtons of force, which amounts to solidly placing her force fields at wall level. Not that impressive. Raven though is outright compared to moon level Donna Troy. It's not city level versus wall level based on her Teen Titans Tower feat and how stupidly that's measured like I initially assumed. No, they do directly compare power output to Donna Troy, who's moon level, as they like to put it. Rather, so it's moon level versus wall level. A sizable gap of a ridiculous 15 sextillion, 578 quintillion, 947 quadrillion times. And I don't even need to mention the speed at this point. This is a ridiculous gap that puts the power on display. Number 3. Remember Roshi vs. Jiraiya? Yeah, the episode of all time when it comes to the debate. Everyone knew how this was going in. I did remember seeing some people saying that Jiraiya should win because speed gap. Death Battle just kind of said no and blew it even further out of the water than I think most people had it. Jiraiya, he shaves mountains. They didn't give a number for that, but let's go for the baseline of mountain level 100 megatons of TNT. If you were to compare that to Roshi's moon-busting Kamehameha, it's a pretty huge gap, but it wouldn't have made it up here. In fact, the gap would have actually made it below Raven Twilight, and I think maybe even Crash Spyro. However, I didn't even bother to look into that, because they had Roshi tanking attacks and fighting against what they claimed to be Galaxy Busters. Outright, Galaxy Busters. They say Roshi was fighting them, they never imply or state this was because of wacky powers or skill. They just just imply that's how powerful he is. Galaxy level. Or about 58 tredecillion, 528 duodecillion, 614 undecillion times more powerful than Jiraiya. A number so big I can barely fit on the screen. This is only number 3, which honestly isn't too crazy given 2025's lineup, but, you know, next up. Number 2, Thanos vs. Darkseid. So for Darkseid, we have to establish where they had him, because they have a lot of different, they say a lot of shit within this analysis. Darkseid's emanation and true form both. First, they claim that Darkseid scales to pre-Crisis Superman, sneezing away solar systems, and he can destroy planets with his Omega beams. When talking about his true form next, they talk about how his avatars are weaker than his true self, because his true form would shatter the laws of reality and end time and space in a universe that wasn't its own. Along with that, they scale the Omega effect, which Darkseid absorbed, to universal. The Omega effect was also compared to the Astro Force stopping a universe-busting bomb. It was also capable of destroying the universe when absorbed by Batman, according to them. They state that Darkseid defeated the universe-warping Time Trapper, and they scale him to pre-Crisis Superman, who they claim survived the Big Bang. So that last bit's important, because it also tells us that the avatars are also universal, according to Death Battle. And at the very end of the conclusion, they explicitly say that universal destruction is something Thanos cannot survive. So no, they did not scale Darkseid in his true form to multiversal like I've heard some people tell me. They did scale regular Darkseid to universal, despite what some have argued though, and they did have both regular and true Darkseid in the same tier, just true form is some arbitrary level higher than the Darkseid avatars. Now let's talk about Thanos, after having wasted time with the obvious. First they say that Thanos can destroy half the universe with the Infinity Gauntlet. However, they also established through what's on screen and the conclusion that this is not power output. This is him dusting half the universe, not blowing it up. Otherwise, the Gauntlet is given nothing. It can control the full spectrum of space, reality, time, power, soul, and mind, which tells us nothing. What is the full spectrum of these? If you wanted, you can interpret a statement that vague as outer-versal, and say it's Stomps Darkseid, or interpret it as just universal, in which case it's just vaguely below true Darkseid. You could also say that it has nothing to do with raw power, and it just can control these things vaguely. You can generally, though, disregard the Gauntlet, because even they claim it won't work if Thanos goes to take on Darkseid's true form, and that's the only way the battle could be won for Thanos, if he kills the true form. So, we have to consider how strong Thanos is regularly faced up against true form Darkseid. If we were to look at those feats, they scale him to surviving a black hole. They also say he can survive enough energy to destroy a galaxy in the corner box in relation to this black hole. However, that's not what the number says. The number they give is 274 septillion tons of TNT for the galaxy-destroying black hole. For comparison, Roshi's moon-destroying Kamehameha in the previous episode was placed at 3 octillion tons, more than 10 times more powerful than this galaxy-busting black hole, which means that Roshi destroying the moon require the same energy it would take to destroy a galaxy if we were to accept what they said at face value. Clearly we have a problem here. They say he can survive star-level power, galaxy-level power, and then only give him a planetary calc. If you would decide, fuck all the contradictory evidence, let's use the exact number they gave us, the exact statistics they want you to think Thanos is at. Thanos would be 246 septicillion, 420 sextillion, 150 quindecillion times weaker than Darkseid. That's gonna look really funny on screen and probably shrunk right down. You can technically get a smaller number if you were to take the Thanos thing at face value. It would only be 328 sextillion times weaker, but that's not the number they gave. This is the number they gave. And they also have like the star level thing that involves black holes, which they calculated it. They didn't. The issue is that they like to talk about the star-sized black hole that Ego ate. However, the 2 light years wide black hole is the one they put at planetary, meaning the smaller black hole they also scale Thanos to that Ego ate in that would not be as much, because obviously it's going to be smaller if it can be eaten by a planet or is the size of a star. So, there's a ton of contradictions in this episode, it's all over the place, but at the end day, true form Darkseid is vaguely at a level higher than 246 septicillion times stronger than Thanos. And that's number 2. Number 1, it's Doctor Strange vs. Dr. Fate. It's still that. I used to consider this the biggest stomp on Death Battle, but I have not anymore. Doctor Strange's power output was put at a casual solar system level. The guy goes around throwing solar system level supernovas, or what most of us just call supernovas, at people's faces. The sidebars even bump him higher, saying he survived the second Big Bang, so we can put him at universal. Pretty cool and all, tons of abilities, scales to 6 quadrillion times the speed of light. Dr. Fate. Well, he's given the same amount of powers, and he is put at 28 decillion times the speed of light, a good 4.6 quintillion times faster. That is actually more times faster than Doctor Strange is times faster than speeds of light. That's not so bad, except they say that True Form Fate, or True Fate, was able to beat down characters who could reshape the entire infinite multiverse, explicitly the infinite multiverse. Not just beat them, but do so effortlessly. He's effortlessly infinite multiversal compared to Strange at Universal. What's infinity divided by universe level? It's infinity, yeah. And that's season 5, the second most wild season of them all at the time it came out. Yeah, I didn't actually write a conclusion for this, it seems, beyond that line. It was a fun video to make. I definitely sound this a bit long, and you can probably tell it's a little bit crusty a script. But, hey, so season 5. After this, I just have season 6, 7, 8 to look at, and will have caught up, and there'll be a full tier list in the last one of every episode by stomp factor. And fun fact, I actually saw someone take some inspiration and try to figure out how big a stomp the newest episode, Ichigo vs. Yusuke, is, by its own logic. Will I use that calc? No, but it's nice to see people doing it, and I imagine it'll be fairly similar, given that the logic they use was like exactly what I would be using. So, yeah, it seems fair to me, and, well, okay, no, that episode was not fair, but it seems reasonable to me. Yeah, so, this was Season 5. I hope you all enjoyed. It's nice to talk about something that's not the 2025 lineup again. Well, so yeah, that... you can tell that one was a bit of an old script, huh? I swear, when I do Season 6, I'll do the script, and I'll actually record it right after, so it's not like outdated on release. But I wanted to get this out, because I do like making these. I think they're quite simple to make for the most part, and it gives me an excuse to, rewatch some death battles I haven't seen in a while. So yeah, Season 6 will be next on the docket. Tell me what you thought. I already got a comment saying that Afrojack, it isn't necessarily wrong just because they gave Afro a huge AP advantage, because Jack did have speed and every other advantage, which I think that's fair. I think that's actually reasonable. If I had written this today, not only would Leon Frank be very different as a segment, but I think Afrojack, it might have differed, but at least in terms of whether I think it's outright wrong or not. But yeah, it was still fun putting one of these together. They're quite simple to do, but I think the results, I always find them quite interesting, and that makes me want to do them. So with that said, thank you everyone supporting me on Patreon. If you want to, the link is in the description. You will get access to our Patreon-only Discord, videos like this and others early, and you will also have the privilege of making me say absolutely stupid shit. Now, I'm actually going to start, when it comes to stupid shit, with something from Cell Metal that I forgot to actually do.
All living things hit the gritty for your master.
What the hell did he just say?
He doesn't remember, you have to. Okay.
It's raining, you're bleeding. Do you want me to call an ambulance? That doesn't look good, actually. Well, Stephen, this truly was a strange fate.
Fuck you, Elijah, pointing. This is Archie. This has to be Archie. Yeah, I see Archie, I see Veronica, yeah. And then the principal. Oh, yeah, why not? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't need context for that. It's the same world as... He exists in the same world as Sabrina. So, he's dated Sabrina. So... It could be weirder.
I had candy before bedtime. Now my tummy hurts. This is where I watched my parents die, Sonic.
So on a scale of awesome sauce to epic fail, I'm officially calling this a big oof. No, not with you.
Hey kid, I fucked your mom. Her and I are in love. I know I am not your biological dad, but to me you are my MF son.
Don't worry, little death battle fan. Ben Singer's got enough Dragon Ball episodes to beat you your entire life. Liam, bring out the Goten versus Boruto. Boy's hungry.
I want to click this. I don't want to click this. You lot didn't need to see that. There's nothing in there. Don't pay for slander. That is true. I'm Nemesis Bloodreich. I hate handshakes, and I kind of like Vegemite a bit. It's not bad. And then this whole little string of conversation that happened. I don't know. Well, it's not even a conversation. It's 3 people responding to the same message. Alright, that was that. I hope that was at least somewhat entertaining. Yeah, I'll see you next time. There'll be some rankings coming up soon. Have a good one, folks.